All right, let's take a look at that. So, same idea. We're going to get the run up at the top. We start up at the top, and then once we see the turn start to straighten out, we kind of aim down a little bit, and we make the corner as straight as possible on exit. So you see I'm not going all the way down to the bottom because really all I need to do is make sure that this sort of exit right here doesn't have any wheel spin on the rears or anything. So I actually get a bit of that, but not the end of the world. It seems to rev out a little bit towards the end of the straights here, so it's not the worst thing that can happen. All right, so now we're going to go into turn 1. And so you see I actually get in the brakes fairly early. Don't want to get too late on the brakes or else you're going to have to bog your car down a lot to make the rotation that you need mid-corner. I tried multiple lines here, and my favorite was this kind of middle high line. The truck, and if you watch the Xfinity too, it's a little different than Xfinity, whereas because I'm trying to keep up momentum, I don't really have much of throttle to pick up off the corner. I really want to keep up this high line so that I can cut down on exit and make the exit straight, almost just like the run-up lap, but we're trying to keep the momentum. And you see that I didn't actually cut down because I found that my angle was able to keep up the speed while at the same time I didn't have to extra slow down my car to cut the exit. So the trucks are a lot more momentum based than some other cars, so I went with the option of more momentum. And that's usually what you need for trucks because if you're going too low and you bog yourself down too much, you just lose a lot of time on exit and down the straight. So I think that's the best option for 1 and 2, even though there might seem a little multi-groove and exploring down on the bottom. But 3 and 4, I really like this line up here as well. But instead of staying at the top, I'm now going to cut down a little more than I did in 1 and 2. And this is because the exit of turn 4 has a lot more of a bend, more of an angle on exit than 1 and 2 did. So to counteract that, I do have to make that cut down and kind of get by the yellow line and just try to mitigate that exit angle as much as possible. So you see, I get on the back up on the throttle pretty darn quickly. Pretty early brake still. A little bit more aggressive into 3. And then we turn down the track, pick up the throttle, and you can really just force the car down there with the wheel. And it's really not losing you any momentum because that's kind of the way that the car is headed anyways. So we start up at top, we use the steering wheel on mostly full throttle to force us down the hill, and this sets up our exit angle, makes sure that we don't get in the wall. Because what happens is, if we're too far up here on exit, we're going to have to use a little bit too much wheel for where we are, and it causes the rears to disengage from the track. You get loose, you slide, you hit the wall. So you really want to try to cut down as much as you can while still maintaining your momentum. And then I think you get a little bit of time by cutting down the track here. Very marginal, just a little bit. But yeah, so we did a long run here, so let's go take a look. All right, so we did a bit of a long run here, ended up being 22 laps. I wanted to go a couple laps longer, but I messed up on the last lap, so well. The truck was a lot more balanced than I thought it would be. Ended up being 87 to 89. I have a really bad right front burning problem at Rockingham usually, so it being this close after over 20 laps means that the set's pretty good, and that probably the way I was driving wasn't that bad either. So we'll go from the beginning of the run, and you'll notice that I'm 3/10 off of my qual lap, and that is because I am really emphasizing, excuse me, I'll turn this down. I'm really emphasizing letting the car rotate on its own and not using this steering wheel for that. So what can we do to turn the car besides use the steering wheel? Use brake and also slow our car down earlier. So actually let's compare my hot lap real quick. So we'll see what my entrance to 1 is at. Okay, so my entrance to 1 is about right here. So right before the dark patch starts, you can see that the grass over here, just the corner. So now let's look at it here. Okay, so I start getting off like right here. So noticeably before, you see how there's this much more grass than before. So I'm letting off noticeably earlier, even on lap 1 of a long run. because I'm looking for this. I don't want to be turning my wheel in the middle of the corner. So even this is probably a little too much for me. I don't like that. So the goal is, once I start turning the car to enter the corner, say like by about right here, I want it to be done turning. I don't want to turn my wheel any farther to the left, and I end up having to. But when your car is sliding up the hill and you have to fight against it with your steering wheel, that's what your right front tire wear comes from. So avoid that at all costs. That's kind of a good visualization of what can cause the right front tire wear, especially at tracks like this. So again, letting off really early. And here I did a lot better job. So you see initial turn in, and it never goes any farther to the left. And I was on the gas that whole way pretty much too. So this is actually the car getting a little loose. You want to get that car loose mid-off so that you know that you're not fighting the car at all off the corner in terms of on the right front. So you see this should be better here. It's okay. Let's go a bit later on. So this is like lap 10 or whatever, somewhere close to 10. So you see I'm still using the same amount of wheel turn in 1 and 2, and I'm in a more of a rhythm. I'm doing a better job of getting the initial turn in, and then just waiting for it to turn back down the hill, and not forcing it back down the hill with my wheel. And the earlier you enter the corner, the earlier your car will want to go back down the hill. And you don't want to get on the gas until your car's coming back down the hill, or else you'll be tight throughout the whole corner and you'll have to be turning the wheel a ton just to keep it off the wall. You don't have to use the wheel at all to keep it off the wall, as long as you start gassing up after the car starts turning back down. So it's all about timing that turn back down, because we want to apex those corners late, just like in the qualifying lap, but we don't want to use our steering wheel to do it. We want to use other things. So let's go a bit later in the run now. Now I'm getting off super early. Well, actually that's not that early. Felt early. Maybe that wasn't quite good enough. Yeah, I used a little too much wheel there. Let's try one more lap. Yeah, now that was a little bit earlier. And you see how I'm using a little more brake too. Using a little more brake. And we're not using the wheel too much to turn the car down. We're still seeing the orange tape. From my perspective, that's a good marker. If I have a really bad lap where I'm really turning the wheel a ton, that's what kind of happens. But anyways, last couple laps here, we'll skip to those. Less than a second fall off, which isn't that bad for Rockingham. Still not using a ton of wheel. I think I was gassing up too early in 1 and 2. That would have hurt me on the long run, so make sure to get your gas points a little bit further down. Brake for a little longer, get on the gas a little later. The later in the run you get, especially in 1 and 2. 3 and 4, it doesn't change too much, but 1 and 2 it really matters. Alright, last lap here. Yeah, see how I stomped on the throttle there a little too early? When I stomp on the throttle, I want the car to be coming back down the hill, but I stomped on it too early. And you don't really even want to stomp, you know what I mean? But you see how the car stays on that straight trajectory. That means that I timed it too early. I needed to wait longer on the brake and get on the throttle later. And it would have turned down a lot easier, but now I have to use extra wheel, and I don't even get it turned all the way back down. So that's kind of the deal with that. Alright. Last lap here. And you see same thing. So around lap 20, you really need to make sure that you're getting on the brake for longer and getting on the throttle later, because you don't want to hit the throttle and have your car go straight. You want to hit the throttle and have your car go down the hill. 1 and 2 especially. 3 and 4 should feel a little more natural. Those changes will happen in 3 and 4 as well, but they're a lot more integral in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 I kind of liked hugging the bottom here a little later in the run. Felt a little more comfortable for me. Felt like I wasn't doing too much on the tires, but there we go. So pretty good little run there. Didn't wear the right front too much, but that could definitely stack if you copy those habits that I had with throttling up too early. That's my #1 tip. So anyways, good luck out there. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.